Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I do not know how many times a week he came to Babylon, but every time we were there on Wednesday, he was there too. As far as I could tell, he was a man of habit. He always sat at the counter at the far inner edge, looked through, hid, and enjoyed a fine cognac. He tried not to stand out, but it was hard not to notice a man in his 40s in a hipster bar. He was tall, trim, carefully dressed, wore a Rolex watch, and sported a large gold ring similar to the ring of a mafia boss on his wedding finger. There were times when I noticed him walking up to a pretty girl sitting alone at the counter and ordering her a drink. After a while, they went outside together. Once I even saw him walk up to a young couple's table and, after a short conversation, walk away with a woman, leaving a confused guy behind. It seemed very strange to me at the time, but I didn't think it was my business. Babylon was our regular meeting place. By ours, I mean myself, my wife Beth, and our close friends Dean and Donna. I nicknamed them the Ding Dongs. We all worked for the same company and lived on the same street in the city center, a few blocks from each other. Dean and Donna started dating even before I joined the company. When I became Dean's friend, Donna picked up her old friend Beth for me, and we all became an inseparable foursome. Babylon was right in the middle of the road between our apartment building and the Ding Dong house, so it was a natural choice for a hangout. Ben, the owner of the establishment for the past 16 years, has always taken care to keep the establishment in excellent condition with excellent service. I'm Jack, a 28-year-old programmer. The company we all work for was formed 4 years ago. I worked there for 3 years. She has raised over $200 million in venture capital. Our product was at an advanced stage of development, and I heard that behind the scenes, the main shareholders had already received offers for an impressive amount of money. However, as far as I knew at the time, no one had made any deals yet. My wife has been our CEO's secretary for a year and a half. Dean was a programmer on my team, and Donna was an accountant. Every Wednesday night, we sat down at our usual table, which Ben usually left for us. We arrived around 9 and stayed until closing time at midnight, usually after the third round of draft beer. When we were completely tipsy, we would start playing a stupid game called How Much, or simply the Game of Babylon. I have no idea who started it or when it became a tradition, but the environment without the Babylon game just wasn't the same. That environment was no different. 50,000, Dean replied to my last offer. What? You just offered me 5,000 for the same thing. I pretended to be offended. Relax, dude, it's just business. We are negotiating here, there is no need to get emotional. Okay, no deals, let's move on to the next question. How much does a night with your wife cost? Are you kidding? I don't know, I said, trying to stifle a chuckle. It depends on who's pitching and who's catching. What do you mean? It's for the whole night. You will take turns on duty. I pay a lot of money here. Then no deal, not even for billions. What if you're the only one in charge? Fuck off, I said. After that, they both fell silent, realizing that they had probably said too much. I'll give you 50,000, Beth said. That's 50,000 more than what you guys expect us to do for free. No, 1 million, Dean replied bravely. You just asked for $250,000. I'll give you 100,000, Beth countered. This is a deal, Dean declared triumphantly with a Cheshire grin on his face, reaching out to my wife to make a deal. You really are a little cheater, aren't you? I teased. It's only 20 minutes of trouble and I get a year's salary for it. I may have to pay back some of the money for psychological therapy, but only a madman would not agree to such a dream deal. Or someone with a sense of self-worth and a minimal set of principles, I said reproachfully. What about you, Jack? How much will you ask? Donna asked. There is no amount that would make me agree to this. It's a matter of principle, simple and easy. Bullshit! Came an unfamiliar voice from the right side of us. Everything has a price. We turned to look in the direction of the explosion and saw a tall, tanned, well-dressed stranger walk away from the end of the counter and sit on a bar stool next to us. Really? I asked him contemptuously. How much would you ask? 5 million, he said without hesitation, taking a long sip from his cognac glass. With your confidentiality agreement, of course, and I'm ready to sing La Marseillaise while it's happening, provided you can pay. I really didn't like this guy, and it looks like I wasn't the only one. We all went back to our game, ignoring him. So, Donna, my wife said in a cheerful voice, how much does it cost to spend a night with a real handsome guy, Some rich, famous guy you're secretly drooling over. What is there to think about? I'll do it for free, Donna replied immediately. Wait a second, Dean interjected. The whole point of this game is to do what you don't want to do for the right price. It's like asking me how much a night with a supermodel costs. It doesn't make any sense. But she breaks her vows. Isn't that worth something? Beth tried to get her own way. Dean shook his head. I'll tell you what, Beth said with a devilish smile. Let's assume it's with the consent of both of you. How much would you guys ask for to let her spend the night with another man? Dean and Donna looked at each other and then back at Beth. Dean tried. Don't be silly, Beth scolded. Let's be realistic. We both know that you will settle for much less. 1 million? Donna asked hesitantly. This could cause serious tension in our marriage, so it better be worth it. 100,000, Beth haggled like a slick dealer at a flea market. 500,000 and we'll make a deal, Dean countered. 200,000 was Beth's counteroffer. 400,000 was Donna's next sentence. Come on, guys, Beth said. It's just a one-night stand. You can get a good down payment for the apartment you've been dreaming about for years. But you'll have to do whatever he asks. Dean and Donna started whispering to each other and finally unanimously said, 250,000, take it or leave it. I think we have a deal, Beth declared, holding out both hands to her friends. Would you really let your wife be used for money? I asked Dean with an expression of disgust on my face. Fuck off, Jack. You would also agree if you received a similar offer. It's easy to talk when it's in the air, but once you see the cash, you'll talk differently. Then I guess you don't know me at all, Dean. I'm shocked that you don't have any self-respect for yourself or your wife. I do not know how you can live with it afterwards. Heck, with our company capabilities, there's a good chance we'll become millionaires ourselves in the next couple of years if the primaries vote to leave. Whoever comes will also offer us a lot for our shares. Maybe, maybe not, Dean replied. And here we're talking about a one-time offer to earn in just one night what many couples won't earn in 5 years of hard work. We live in the 21st century, not the 14th. Your outdated ideals have no place in the modern world. We even talked about the possibility of changing partners someday, so it's not that big a difference. And again, this is your chatter. A briefcase full of cash is on the table, and you would have sung another song. There is no amount of money to make me agree to such an abomination, I said confidently. Dean obviously didn't believe me. Worse, he clearly didn't respect my position, not to mention that he didn't believe me. I got upset and lost interest in this stupid game. I was just about to get up and go to the bathroom when suddenly the tanned stranger opened his mouth again. 50,000. The whole bar turned to look at him. He looked directly at Beth, probably realizing that she was the weak link. 50,000 for an unforgettable night with your wife. How do I know that you can actually pay? Beth asked scornfully. I have the means, he replied smugly, apparently completely sober. Ben can vouch for me here. This won't be the first time I've taught a pretentious husband the importance of modesty. I looked at Ben and he nodded his head gloomily. He didn't like that his establishment was involved in such scandals, but there wasn't much he could do. The guy had green money, and apparently he had a lot of it. If you don't believe me, please find me online, he said. I'm Jacques Blumenthal. All the visitors took out their smartphones and started typing, including me. An article about him with his photo claimed that he was the director and founder of the third largest venture fund in the state, and that he owned 20% of its shares. The fund specialized in investing in promising startups, and I was surprised to learn that it even owns 22% of our company. Assuming we come to an agreement, Beth said to my surprise, how are you going to pay? I will make a direct bank transfer to your account. You will see the money during the working day, or I can make an instant transfer to your digital wallet if you have one. $1 million, Beth announced. I turned, shocked, and hit her hand with the back of my hand. What the hell, Beth? Don't you dare touch me, she snapped at me. I don't belong to you. It's about our future, and I'll make the right decision for both of us, even if you can't. I just stared at her with my mouth open. No offense, honey, you're gorgeous, but not $1 million gorgeous, was the man's wise response. 100,000. 750, Beth said. 250 just to teach your hubby a lesson he'll never forget, he said without even looking at me. 500,000 last offer? Beth exclaimed, raising her head and squinting at him. You made a deal, baby, he said, finishing his glass and putting it on the counter. You'll have to do whatever I ask. Your words. Beth started to get up when I jumped in and held her down by grabbing her right arm with both hands. "Don't you dare move," I growled through clenched teeth. My furious look was apparently frightening enough for her to sit down again and turn away, frowning. "I'll be waiting for you outside for the next 5 minutes," said that asshole. He put some bills on the counter and left the bar. I'm sorry to interrupt in the midst of tension, but I have to clarify some important things about myself and Beth that are crucial to understanding subsequent events. You see, I was not a typical programmer who came from college to the company. Not only did I not go to college, I didn't even graduate from high school. I grew up in a harsh neighborhood, one where you had to fight for your life to survive. If you couldn't fight, you had to scratch, bite, and poke anything but give up. I joined a gang at the age of 14, and at 15 I spent 6 months in a juvenile prison for serious assault. When I was released, my mother wouldn't let me leave the house except to go to school. She made me swear that I would not return to that life. I gave her my word and stayed at home. I became interested in computers. This interest became an obsession, and at the age of 17 I was already working as a freelancer. Shortly before I was about to graduate from high school, I received an offer that was impossible to refuse and started working as a full-time programmer. My mom didn't like it, but when she saw my first paycheck, she at least admitted that I wasn't an idiot for making the choice I had. Over the past 11 years, I have worked non-stop, lived frugally, and accumulated good savings, including a digital crypto wallet, which has grown significantly over the years. I'm not a millionaire yet, but I'm not worried about money either. The salary paid to good programmers today is ridiculously high, and I have no reason to fear for the future. Beth tried to find out about my financial situation, but I didn't feel the need to share too much information. None of us were going to start a family anytime soon, so we were fine with just renting an apartment. Apart from Beth and my close family, no one knows about this dark chapter in my life. Since I was released from prison, I have turned my back on this world, but its lessons have never completely left me. I still had the instinct to take revenge twice for any blow I received, never leave an insult unanswered, and never let anyone humiliate me. Moreover, I was raised by hard-working immigrants who instilled in me values such as modesty, respect, and pride. Of course, I screwed up with some of them for a while, but you'd be surprised how much the spirit of the unyielding, hard-working immigrant and the don't take shit and don't take prisoners street lifestyle resonates. My grandmother used to say that if you don't have self-respect, you won't have respect for others. Beth and I had been dating for almost a year when the ding-dongs got married. Their wedding had exactly the effect on Beth that was to be expected. I didn't see the point in getting married without planning to start a family right after, but Beth kept pushing me, so in the end I gave in. Did I think Beth was the love of my life at that time? No, but I really loved her. She was beautiful, smart, funny, caring, and sensitive, well, most of the time. Would I risk my life to save her? Definitely yes. Would I forgive her for her sarcastic and deliberate humiliation? Definitely not. I probably loved her, but I still loved myself more. It's been a minute since that asshole left the bar. You could have heard the pin drop. Everyone was looking at us like it was a scene from one of Sergio Leone's westerns. The ding-dong and I exchanged furtive glances. Beth was still looking away. Then came the moment when many of you would soon start shouting, "What the hell were you thinking?" After 3 sips, I really wanted to take a leak, so I got up and told my loving wife, "I'm going to the bathroom. I expect to see you here when I get back. If not, don't even think about going home, and you can tell your lover to run away, because I'm coming for both of you." With that, I went to the bathroom. Now you're probably asking why the hell I would take such a stupid risk when all I had to do was wait a few more minutes. Well, first of all, I really needed to pee. Secondly, I believe in free will. I was happy to inform Beth of the consequences of her possible choice, but as soon as I cooled down a few degrees, I knew I wasn't going to physically interfere with her doing anything. Thirdly, and most importantly, I realized that my marriage was almost over the minute she started negotiating with him. Humiliating me in public was not something I could either accept or forgive. The fact that she accepted his offer proved to me that she was a cheater, maybe very expensive, but still a cheater. While in the bathroom, I decided that if she was still at the table when I came out, we would end things in a civilized way. As soon as I came out of the bathroom and saw Ben shaking his head, I knew she was gone. I went over to our table to get my wallet, phone, and keys. The ding-dongs looked scared. Dean managed to say with a pleading look, "That's a lot of money, Jack." "Fuck you!" I hissed, letting him know that our friendship was over. I really didn't want to talk to a couple who were ready for literally anything when it came to money. Donna didn't even lift her head to look at me. As I headed for the door, I heard a woman shout behind me. I would have done the same thing. A second later, I heard a sharp slapping sound. I wasn't sure if it was an angry husband or something else. It's a pity that my apartment was so close. I really could use a long walk to cool off a little more. As soon as I entered my apartment, I took out my frustration and rage on a large wedding photo hanging on the wall in the living room. I hit her so hard, so many times, that there was nothing left of her. After that, I moved on to the rest of the photos, then to the furniture, vases, dishes, her clothes, and electronics. I literally tore everything apart. I was so angry that I even destroyed her makeup. I couldn't disassemble the refrigerator, so I started tearing up the food that was in it. Fortunately for the eggs, the elderly widow from the apartment above me knocked hard on my door, threatening to call the police, so I had to stop. I went to open the door. She loved pounding on the door with her fist so much that as soon as it opened, she accidentally hit me hard in the chest. "Hello, Mrs. Miller," I said with a smile. She must have taken it as pure madness. "What the hell is wrong with you? It's the middle of the night. Where's Beth?" "Please don't scream, Mrs. Miller," I said sarcastically. "You'll wake up the neighbors." "How many times have I asked you to call me Betty, you imbecile?" "Okay, Betty, do you want to come in?" To my great surprise, she did so. My apartment was in complete chaos. The evidence of my rampage was scattered on the floor. It took a while, but Betty finally found a place on what used to be a sofa strong enough to support her weight. "Well, are you going to tell me what the hell made you do this? Or should I just call the county psychiatrist to come and see you?" "Beth is cheating on me while we're talking." Her eyes widened and her mouth opened in disbelief. Then she insisted that I tell her everything. She listened to my story, stopping me here and there to clarify something. When I finished, she thought in silence for a while and then said, "Many women would do the same." "Maybe many, but not most," I said confidently. "No, of course not most women. So what are you going to do?" "I'm filing for divorce first," I said. "And I'll buy myself new furniture and electronics," I added with a silly smile. "You should try one of these second-hand apps," she advised me. "Look for someone who is going abroad. You can clean out his whole house for pennies. They are desperate to sell." After a short pause, she continued, "Do you think Beth will come back despite your threats?" "I seriously doubt it." "Do you think you can really hurt her?" After she realized that I wasn't going to answer, she said, "Oh, the Fifth Amendment is right, a smart choice. Well, I think she'll have enough money to manage on her own for a while. Are you planning to go after them like you said at the bar?" "I'm usually a man of my word. There's no way in the world I'm going to let her enjoy that dirty money after what she did to me." "Look," she said, "if he's as rich and powerful as you say, that might be a weakness too. Most likely, he will do everything in his power to avoid notoriety. These rats have more money than they can spend in their miserable lives. They care more about their reputation and position in power. If you're planning on hurting him, you might want to try something like that." We continued to discuss and explore various options and scenarios. She was probably the smartest person I've ever met. Her analytical thinking and insight combined with her stunningly extensive life experience amazed me. It made me think about how sad it is that we have to go through tragic events to get to know some people almost literally next to us. At some point, she couldn't stand the discomfort of the broken sofa anymore and invited me to continue our conversation in her apartment over a cup of coffee. I accepted her invitation, and we continued our marathon of planning and intrigue until 4 in the morning. And no, nothing else happened. We were both tired and yawning when I finally retired to my apartment. At least I still had a mattress to sleep on. I will be eternally grateful to Mrs. Miller for the time and care she gave me that night. She turned what was supposed to be the worst night of my life into something almost enjoyable. I woke up around 10, and the first thing I did was call my manager at work. He wasn't surprised when I told him that I needed a few days off to sort out my family problems. Obviously, the ding-dongs had already spread the rumor about last night's events, and no one expected me to show up at work. He also informed me that Beth had called to announce her resignation, which is effective immediately. I assumed that with $500,000 she could always find an office job. I thought maybe her new lover decided to keep her as a toy or pet. After short visits to the bank and my insurance agency, I went to meet with a family law lawyer whom Betty had recommended. The first phase of the meeting concerned the expected divorce process and was rather boring. I gave him the address and phone number of Beth's mother, as I had no idea where Beth was. The second stage, however, was much more interesting. I explained to the lawyer that Blumenthal was worth $500 million and that I intended to sue him for $10 million for his active participation in the destruction of my marriage. He immediately tensed up and explained that alienation of affection is recognized only in 6 federal jurisdictions, but not in ours. He explained to me that the only viable option I had left was to sue him for long-term psychological damage and for the public humiliation I had suffered. However, he said that it was very doubtful that I would win, especially since we were playing such a provocative game in a public place, which was actually an invitation for anyone to join. I calmly explained to him that I had no plans to actually win or even continue the case for a very long time. The idea was to use the threat of making his exploits public as pressure to get him to settle down. He then said that it was outright extortion and that he would not risk his license and reputation for simple gain. It literally made me laugh out loud. I explained to him that I expected at least $1 million in net profit and that anything beyond that could be his, but on condition that he manages to close the deal within the next 2 weeks. I definitely got his attention. I could see the wheels turning in his head as astronomical numbers flashed before his eyes. "Let me call my investigator," he said. "He's good. Surveillance footage, other victims like you, maybe even the owner, Ben," you said. "Yes, we can explore some possibilities." "Well, all right then," I replied smugly. "I also need you to make an appointment with a psychologist as soon as possible," he said. "We may need it if we end up in court anyway. Remember, this guy has caused you serious and lasting psychological damage. Let's make sure that the expert agrees with this. Otherwise, try to keep as quiet as possible. Our influence only works as long as this story remains a secret. If everything becomes public, he will have nothing to lose." I nodded in understanding. He disappeared for a few minutes and returned with all sorts of forms that I had to sign. I left his office feeling very excited and hopeful, but I didn't have much time to have fun. I still had to redecorate my apartment. Friday morning brought a pleasant surprise. A beep from my smartphone informed me that I had received an important message from my banking app. It turned out that Beth had transferred $250,000 to my account. Very nice of her, I thought to myself. Now I just have to take care of the other half, or at least make sure she doesn't enjoy it. A couple of hours later, I donated the entire amount to an institution for at-risk children. Well done, Beth. There was a ray of hope in your actions after all. It was a long, difficult weekend. Although I did everything to avoid it, the feeling of loneliness and longing seeped in. While I was running for a week, I was in pretty decent shape. But as soon as I stopped making plans and doing something, memories of Beth surfaced. Our first date, our first kiss, the first time we confessed our love, the first time we made love. That damn cheater broke my heart. However, the worst was yet to come. I had to meet with a lawyer and an investigator to review the footage from Babylon. At first, I liked watching us play the Babylon game. There was no doubt that I would miss the ding-dong sense of humor. Then came the negotiation stage, and it opened all the wounds again. It was hard to see myself sitting there helpless when my marriage, honor, and pride went down the drain. The lawyer and the investigator were right there, watching it with me. It probably wasn't the first time they did this. They had questions, simple questions, but each one stung. I'd be lying if I said I didn't shed some tears. It turned out that Beth ran outside as soon as I got up from the table to go to the bathroom. By the way, the girl who called out to me as I was leaving got a ringing slap in the face. By Wednesday morning, I had 2 cuckolds signing affidavits at my lawyer's office. I didn't ask what the investigator had to do or spend to bring them into the case. The lawyer insistently hinted that it would be better if I didn't ask. Both men were already divorced. I wondered how many more families Mr. Blumenthal had destroyed. On Wednesday afternoon, my lawyer called me to tell me that he had received a preliminary offer from Blumenthal's lawyers for $400,000, and he was interested to know if I would agree to share it with him in a 1:3 ratio. I answered no, and hung up. 2 hours later, he called again with a new offer of $600,000, and wanted to know if I would agree to share it with him in a ratio of 1:5. This time I was more frank and made it clear to him not to bother me until our original agreement was fulfilled. That evening, I went to visit Betty. I didn't want to be alone on Wednesday night. I went back to work on Thursday. It was strange to see Dean in the office and exchange nods with him. With the exception of a few work-related questions, we didn't exchange a word. Even if he wanted to talk about what happened or apologize, he knew there was no point. I will always see him as a spineless weakling who agreed to pimp his wife and sacrifice his dignity for money. Ironically, it was my wife who agreed to Blumenthal's deal, which doomed my friendship with Dean. On Friday morning, my lawyer called, and his voice sounded happy. He told me that he had been able to reach the agreement we had hoped for, and asked me to come as soon as possible and sign the forms. The agreement included a complicated non-disclosure clause that included the threat of a counterclaim for millions of dollars if I went to the press with any information. The money was transferred the next day. I donated half of it to a shelter for battered women. By the following Wednesday, the tabloids had noted a scandalous video that showed a respected venture fund manager offering $500,000 for a bed for one night to a married woman as she sat next to her husband in a bar. "Just to teach your hubby a lesson he'll never forget," the headline screamed. Jacques Blumenthal was forced to leave his post 2 days later. No one could prove that I sent the video to the tabloids, not even Ben. The event was held in a public place. In any case, suspicion was immediately directed at Ben or one of his employees. Neither my lawyer nor his investigator was in the room when I was making copies. In any case, Blumenthal would not have dared to sue the poor husband whose life he had already ruined. However, we shouldn't feel too sorry for him. He was still obscenely rich, and sociopaths like him, unfortunately, recover very quickly, no matter how hard they get hit. However, if he had decided to pursue me, I think he would have found a sociopath on the edge right in front of him. I'm not stupid enough to think he's going to challenge me to a one-on-one fight, but he might send someone. If he ever does, well, the Babylon game will take on a whole new meaning. I had other plans for Blumenthal after this story leaked, but I decided to leave him alone for a while. In the end, he saved me from spending the rest of my life on someone who was unworthy. As for Beth, no one knows where she is. She hasn't tried to contact me since she left, and vice versa. Her mother told my lawyer that she contacted her only once, a week after that damn Wednesday, telling her that she was fine and that she was taking a vacation to sort things out. I really hope Beth doesn't show up suddenly. It will be much more interesting to track her down. I'm coming for you, baby. I have big plans for you. P.S. I lied when I said I had no idea who started the game.